Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the first episode of how Manchester United beat Villarreal in this instance, but we are going to be looking at Manchester United's results and analysing from a statistical perspective how United did what they did. I'm joined by Abdul, our resident stats expert.
I'd say I'm a stats. I wouldn't say a stats expert.
Come on. Well, you work with Statman Dave, of course.
Yeah.
You're one of the men sort of behind the scenes there and in front of the scenes sometimes as well. So that is your credentials. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know my way around some stats.
You know your way around some stats. What we're going to be doing is going through the games, having a look at a few key stats that Abdul's picked out and what he think led to the result. We're starting with Villarreal. We will be doing other games as well. We'll start with Villarreal, a game where, to the layman, to me, it felt as though we were shit, but we won. How did it feel watching it, with a slightly more statistical eye than I've got?
I think if you compare the last two games, Man United have played, I think we were good in patches. If just before we get into Villarreal, the Villa and West Ham games, we were getting into really good areas. Look at that Villa game, Bruno created 10 chances, the most out of a single player in the Premier League this season. So that says it all in that Villa game. Like he was putting in the right passes, and that was unfortunate not for us not to win that. And then you switch it around against Villarreal, and we didn't really create anything clear cut. I'd say Villarreal were hammering us, as we'll see when we're talking about De Gea and so on with the XG and that. So I felt we didn't deserve to win the game from a tactical perspective. I thought Danjuma pinned the low down throughout that game way too much. Greenwood should have been there helping him, and it felt like a constant thing that was happening in that first half, especially that maybe someone should have. I know that you can't really get in the middle of the game and solve these types of issues, but maybe get across to one of the players to sort of deal with that. And there was a goal. It always felt like there's gonna be a goal coming from Danjuma down that left side. Good with both his feet. Took a shot on his left foot. There was a cross as well where I know Delo had a bit of a nightmare, but it was a bit of a difficult task, and it is one of the best 1v1 players I've watched recently in Europe. He's earned his move, obviously, from Bournemouth to Villarreal. So he's someone I felt like we had to deal with, and we got lucky because David De Gea bailed us out.
Well, let's have a look at that then. Let's get our first sort of key stat of the game then, and this is looking at David De Gea. See, they're 14 of 14 passes completed, which obviously is good, something he's been criticised for in the past, but isn't the main role of a goalkeeper. What is 6 saves inside the area, which presumably inside the 18-yard box, you mean that's where the shots came from, because obviously all De Gea saves have to come inside the area, because otherwise it's handball. And then, like you said there, that's the key one, 2.37 XG from Villarreal. Obviously, they only scored 1 goal. How much was David De Gea to sort of, how much of a part did he play in that?
I thought he's probably man of the match in that game. I don't know if anyone would disagree with that. Some of the saves he made, the one with the header as well.
Yeah, the straight up.
That was a brilliant save. What other save to look at? There was one across goal. I think
the diving off to his left-hand side,
That one, that looked like it was going straight into net. There was one sort of straight at him, but he made himself
the 101, big.
So he's really looking like the David De Gea we know, and maybe he can even reach a new level that we've not seen from him with the confidence. And obviously, they switched around some stuff with the goalkeeping coaches over the last 2 seasons. Obviously, this was before even what happened in the Europa League final, so I don't know if that's had an effect on him. If we look at this 6 saves inside the penalty area, that's basically inside shots from inside there. So I think Villarreal threatened us way too much. They got in way too easily, and you can put that down to sort of not having Harry Maguire.
Yeah, well, I was just going to mention that because I know that obviously Dalot had a bit of a stinker, but Greenwood and Sancho aren't the sort of most defensively able wingers, are they? Also, we've got 3 of our back 4 not playing. 3 of our starting back 4 not playing, with Maguire, Shaw, and Wan-Bissaka all out. How much of a role do you think that played in there? Because yes, it's easy to say Dalot had a bit of a stinker. They've got a winger that's good 1-on-1, but this is a back 4 that's never really played together, or has never played together, and wingers again that don't really support as defensively as you might hope.
I think you'd say it's quite an attacking back 4 as well, because Telles and Delo, I felt we had an issue. Something I noticed was chatting to my mate next to me in the game yesterday was I felt like Telles he didn't know when to step in and just go for it. I don't know whether it's sort of him or not, or it's the way United have been set up, but there was a couple of times where he'd just lay off his man, he'd let him have the ball, and then he'd have space to build up an attack on us. So again, these players haven't played a lot of football. They're all fighting for a place in the team. And Villarreal, they're one of the most difficult sides you can probably face. I'm not saying that they're the hardest team, but they will be one of the most difficult sides that you can face in Europe, because they really make it tough for you. On the weekend, they drew to Real Madrid, so we've seen that. So for me, you've got to sort of take that result as it is. You've got to move on, and you got to think Luke Shaw's coming back into this 11, hopefully better than the way he started the season. Harry Maguire's coming back into that defence as well. And then Wan-Bissaka as well is a miss, because especially in those situations where if the winger's not tracking back, and say Mason Greenwood as an instance, or Sancho, whatever, tracking back with a full-back, or the pressing isn't good enough and they get left in those situations, like we've seen with Danjuma yesterday and Delo, Wan-Bissaka is okay with that. Like, he can deal with those situations pretty well. So we missed some players.
Yeah, sorry. When you talk about Danjuma being one of the best sort of one-on-one wingers, attacking-wise.
Yeah, just from the bits I've watched. And then Wan-Bissaka
is obviously one of the best 1v1 defenders, so that would have worked. So De Gea then, we talk about this level that he's at. Like you said, do you think this is it now? Do you think he's back to the form he was at? Because it's not just been this game. Yes, he's made all these saves yesterday. He's prevented a lot of goals that should have occurred, or 2 goals at least that should have occurred.
Yeah.
Do you think we can safely say he's back to where he was, or do you want to see maybe up till Christmas before you want to give that sort of verdict?
I think we're starting to see that level creep in again, of just him making those unbelievable world-class saves, reflex saves, double saves, stuff like that. So
the one on the ground yesterday in the second, I don't know, at the 85th minute.
So good with that. Best, probably one of the best, if not the best keeper I've ever seen that deals with those. If you remember Arsenal away a few years back under Jose, does that. Olympiacos in the past, I think it was under David Moyes, does a similar save. He does these insane saves. I think Iker Casillas style, where it's just like off his feet quickly, like if he's get on the ground. But yeah, just outside of that, I thought, outside of the defensive problems, I thought even going forward, we just didn't create enough routes of ways to attack. I felt like through the middle, it was quite sluggish at times. You don't especially in such a difficult Champions League night like last night was. Scott McTominay is always going to be more of the defensive man. Paul Pogba for me didn't really step up. I do like Paul Pogba, but he didn't. And it's always this discourse of Paul Pogba where do we go from here? Because Ollie's style, does it suit having him there in that double pivot? And I thought Bruno, again, like even if he's not having the best of games, and I don't think any of our midfielders or attackers or anyone on the pitch was like clearly having an amazing game. He had a great shot on the edge of the box. He tries things. He played with heart.
Well, let's talk about Bruno. Let's get the stats up for Bruno, because he was the second player you wanted to focus on, wasn't he? 4 chances created, 8 ball recoveries. The chances created is obviously very good, but also that willingness to come back, get balls, chase, press. He's good at that. When it seemed like to me, it was a bit of a disjointed press yesterday. Like you got Ronaldo sort of, come on, Bruno, come on. And it like Pogba wasn't really pressing, and McTominay was staying deep, and the wingers didn't seem to know what to do. Yeah. What did you make of that?
One thing I noticed, which I really liked about Bruno, and why he's so important to the structure that Ollie's built in terms of this 4-2-3-1, having it as number 10, was when I noticed that he started seeing that Delo was isolated in that situation, and he'd come across and made a couple of tackles on the right whilst Mason Green was tucking inside. So it's just him. It's just having that. It's simple as it says, and like we're diving into the in-depth sides of football. We're talking tactical stuff, like the stats and everything. He really wants to win out there, and that's just as important as everything else we're talking about. If the quality of the ball at your feet, that's great, but you've got to want to win, and that's the level that he showed yesterday. The amount of times he was just in there, tracking back, and I've got a lot of time for players like that, making crucial tackles, lifting the team with that. And you mentioned a point about the disjointed press, and I really felt that. And I feel it's just missing players like Marcus Rashford in there as well, who's been built as one of the players in the side where he knows the requirement of the way we press against the more difficult sides and stuff like that. But he can also break sides down. So again, I felt when the changes did happen, one thing that frustrated me was I love seeing Eddie and the passion he showed in the end as well to go in and work hard and win that ball in that corner. That was brilliant to watch. It got the fans going. But for me, Bruno Fernandes, Cristiano Ronaldo, Eddie Cavani, this is now 2 games. The end of Villarreal game, and the Villa game as well, where we're breaking on the team and we've not got genuine pace.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were in the good positions, we were there. And honestly, I feel like, I've mentioned this on my fan cam a lot, but this is where I have that positive, where in that situation, if you've got Marcus Rashford, teams can't keep playing like that against us, because there's a lot of opportunities where we've gotten behind these teams with the balls over the top against Villa from Bruno Fernandes. Teams cannot continue to do that when Marcus Rashford's back. And I felt like Jesse Lingard should have come on a little bit earlier. Now he scored and the movement was great. He's another player that I think deserves highlighting as well. Obviously played only a couple of minutes, but you instantly seen his influence, because he was involved in like a little shot before. And then Fred, fair play, that was a good ball in the box, but he's always there in at the right time. And he had that... Jesse Lingard sort of notices Cristiano Ronaldo was beside him, puts perfect lift on the ball into his lane. So again, the game changes. I seen you guys talk about it. It popped up on my timeline today about, you know, the game changing thing. I think Steve Quote tweeted it. That was really good. So Ollie has made good changes. Sometimes it's about the timing for me. And when they come in, I felt like we really needed a bit of pace on the break. But I think we're built and we're ready for when Marcus Rashford's back to slap teams up, man. I think we're going to go on a good run of form.
I think it's a strange one, isn't it? Because pace is one of those it's almost a gift rather than a trait. It's like you can't teach pace. You can obviously learn the techniques of sprinting, but you're not going to turn Phil Jones into Marcus Rashford no matter how much training you do. And because it's such a, I know this is so silly, but because on social media and on the internet, it's such a FIFA thing, pace, isn't it? People forget how fucking dangerous a lightning quick player like Marcus Rashford is, and how much you have his skill and you have his ability in front of goal and his passing and his vision and his dribbling. But someone that is just rapid. There was a point yesterday when we were counter-attacking, like you mentioned. Bruno's got the ball. Ronaldo's on his right. Cavani's coming in from behind. But Cavani wasn't fast enough to overlap and drag a man away.
His intelligence was there, because they made the movements, and that was my main talking point. And I was going through it all night. The fan cams popped off yesterday. I couldn't really make the point on a fan cam, but that exact moment was the reason why I was like, this is something United have got to look at. And I felt like Jesse Lingard in that moment would have been a lot more influential. He might have been on at that time, but again, for me, he should have been on a lot earlier, because again, like the Villa game, we needed quicker players. We were getting in those areas. Villarreal started sniffing that confidence of, we can play high line, we can push up. And Villa did that against us and we didn't take advantage. And that was, for me, as much as I like Ollie, I want him to succeed, frustrating part, because a lot of the time he reacts really well to teams' weaknesses, and that's why we've come back last season. That's why the subs have made the differences. Cavani, Southampton away, and many, many other games where players have made differences. But again, it was just frustrating the last couple of games. And I think you're going to have Luke Shaw back fit, hopefully Harry Maguire. Even if he's not back fit, I thought Lindelof and Varane. I know it looked a bit all over the place yesterday, but I think they were all right against Villa in the last few minutes. And it was mainly around the fullbacks' problems that was causing them the issue. So, after the break, it'll be pretty good to see them.
And finally, then, talking about Varane and Lindelof there, Raphael Varane is the last player you wanted to look at in terms of how we beat Villarreal. You can see there 2 of 2 tackles completed, 82 passes as well, which is obviously a huge amount of passes, and 10 of 14 long passes completed as well. That vision, being able to spread the play, break up a little bit of that pressure is massive. There was that one mistake on the edge of the box, which wasn't punished.
I was going to highlight that, definitely, regardless of...
But how good was Varane yesterday?
It's just on the ball, and us having... There was one ball he popped off with his left foot onto the right, and it's having that confidence of just approaching the ball that way, the calmness to receive it. Had that situation on the edge of the box, but I felt like he was isolated there. But moving on, it's just we keep seeing bits and bits of how Raphael Varane's one of the best centre-backs in the world.
And like I said... I think we're in a position now where I know people like to have a go at Victor Lindelof. I know he's got obvious mistakes, obvious weaknesses, but I think he's a very good but not great centre-back. I don't think there's too much of a problem with Victor Lindelof and Raphael Varane. There have been many teams that have won many trophies with a worse partnership than those two. So if we have to wait a little while for Harry Maguire to be back, like you said, I think it's probably those full-backs
100% agree with
that will sort of make the real difference. Right, that is going to be all from us. That is the first episode of how Manchester United beat, on this occasion, it was Villarreal. Would you say lucky to beat them?
This time lucky.
Lucky.
Definitely lucky.
But one thing, just quickly before we go, I think we'll look back at this game, hopefully, like you said, when Marcus comes back after the international break, get past Everton, and you can sort of maybe say...
Just got over the line.
We got over the line, and that was the start of something. This needs to be the start of something. Teams are allowed bad form, but it has to only be form.
Yeah.
We can't have a collapse. So hopefully this can be the start of something. Thank you very much for Abdul for coming on. We'll be doing this again, like I said, after the Champions League games. Crucial now. This group's getting tasty, innit? Yeah. Very, very tasty. Right, thank you very much for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know if you think we missed anything. If we missed a key play, if we missed a key stat that could have been the deciding factor in Manchester United beating Villarreal. Let us know in the comments below. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.